Hello, my name is Brad Tucker, and welcome to our presentation on the Laguna TS and TSS table saw. In front of me, I have a typical American-designed cabinet saw. This is a very old design, and there are many manufacturers that have a machine with this same design. The good ones have a very long tradition, and they are the backbone of most woodworking shops in North America. Now, let me show you what made this design so popular. One, it's really a very simple, sturdy design. There's a good rip fence that stays parallel to the blade. There are two grooves in the tabletop. We call these miter slots. And together with the miter gauge, you can make all your angle and miter cuts. You can also make 90-degree square cuts on relatively small material. Another nice feature of this table saw is that it will accept a dado blade. There are many table saws that will not accept a dado blade, and this has become such a common woodworking practice that it's really a must-have for any table saw today if you're looking for one. This saw could, however, stand to get some improvements. One is this blade guard and splitter. It's fixed in position. It doesn't raise or lower with the blade like on the European saws. What this means is that there are many cuts that it's in the way and it must be removed. Most woodworkers remove it, don't ever put it back on, which makes this actually a very dangerous design. The miter gauge. While it's fine for smaller miter cuts like picture frames and moldings, it doesn't have enough capacity for commonly used materials like 1x12 or plywood. It would be nice if this had some more capacity. The throat plate. This is light and aluminum. It's really not up to par with the rest of the machine. These are often not very flat, and a lot of woodworkers replace these or make their own. Also, since the opening is very small, someone like myself with large hands, this is very difficult to get in here to work on the machine and change blades. And if you're talking about a dado blade, it's even tougher. So let me show you what we came up with. And this is the Laguna TS table saw. Later in the tape, I'll show you the TSS, which is the same machine, just right here on this side we have a nice sliding table for larger cross-cut capacity. As you can see, we stuck to the tried and true American design. We've also added the best European features, and since many of us here at Laguna are woodworkers, we've also thrown in some of our own inventions. Now first, take a look at the base. As you can see, we've made it much wider. We've also made it deeper. This is to add strength and stability. We've also used heavier gauge steel, again to increase stability and add strength. Now let me show you up close the cast iron top. This is where we used a lot of the standard American features that we like so much. We've just made everything heavier. As you can see, there are two miter slots on either side of the blade. We've used a standard dimension, 3/8 deep by 3/4 wide. This is so you can use all your standard miter gauges and aftermarket accessories. And we've carried the heavy construction right through to the steel outfeed table. Heavy gauge steel that's reinforced with box beams approximately 6 inches on center. The legs are steel with standard leveling screws. Now look at this throat plate. All cast iron, not aluminum. It's twice the size of the old saws. The opening is large. There's plenty of room for my hands. There are 6 leveling screws to keep this perfectly level with the main table. The actual insert is dovetailed into place so that making your own dado throat plates or zero clearance inserts is really easy. You can easily make one for every one of your blades. And while I have this open, I want to talk to you about the blade Arbor. We've chosen to use a standard 5/8 Arbor because we know most people like to use 10-inch blades. But this saw will also accept a 12-inch blade. the splitter or riving knife. We've used the standard European design, which means it goes up and down with the blade, so you don't ever have to remove it. It's very safe. Now let me show you a few cuts that can only be made safely with this design. The European-style riving knife can be set very close to the blade. You can also see how it follows the curvature of the blade. And since it raises and lowers in unison, this means that this close tolerance can be maintained no matter where you set the height. Now there are many pieces of wood that have a natural tension just waiting to come out. What this means is that sometimes you'll be ripping a piece of lumber and it will try to close in the back and clamp down on the blade. This is what causes dangerous kickback. What a proper riving knife will do is it will keep that kerf open. It makes it much safer to cut pieces of wood with this tension. Another nice feature is that it doesn't have to be removed when you are cutting through a piece of wood, but not all the way through the material. Let me show you what I mean. Now I want to show you the rip fence. We use the tried and true American T-square design. There's a hairline readout for accurate measurements. It has a 50-inch rip capacity. Rather than using plywood sides like the original, we used a smooth phenolic surface. Now let me show you underneath how we use T-slots to bolt these on. This makes it very easy to work on or replace in the future if you ever need to. Now I want to show you a feature normally only found on larger professional machines. Now, before coming to Laguna, I had a woodworking business in Carmel, California. A typical project that we would have worked on required extremely high-quality woodworking, expensive materials, and perfect cuts. We had special blades to cut veneered plywoods. We had another set of special blades that we used to cut materials like laminates and melamine. A big problem that we had was that these special blades didn't cut perfectly for very long at all. We had to be very careful. We were constantly watching for the first signs of tear out, and then we would change the blades. If we weren't careful, we would go through a lot of expensive material and waste a lot of time and money only to realize that the cuts we were making were not acceptable. Now, this is a piece of cherry veneer plywood. This is a good example of one of the pieces that I would have used on those projects. I just cut this piece using a blade that we've had on this saw for a very long time. This is not a nice cut. I could not give this to one of my customers. The next feature I want to show you is available on the Laguna table saws, and it would allow me to run a blade as long as I've run this one and still make perfect cuts. Scoring. Now, I don't want to be too hard on the good old American design, but if I would have had scoring for all those years, it would have saved me a lot of headache and lost time and money. So, let me show you what scoring is and how it works. Scoring is actually a separate blade that rotates in the opposite direction as the main blade. It has its own motor and separate switch. It's actually a pair of blades with shims. What the shims do is they allow you to adjust the blade for a perfect width just barely wider than the main blade. The scoring blade can then be adjusted left to right for perfect alignment to the main blade, then adjusted for height so that it just underscores the bottom of the veneer by a 1/16 of an inch or so. Hence the name scoring. What this does is it allows the main blade to cut through this pre-cut path, and the main blade never actually makes contact with the bottom veneer. This is why it makes perfect cuts. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make another cut using the same blade that's been on for quite a while, but I'm not going to turn on the scoring. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on the scoring blade so you can see how it cuts. Now, as you can see, the side that I cut without using the scoring blade just looks terrible, completely torn up. I couldn't show this or give this to one of my customers. The side that I used the scoring, using the same blade, looks perfect. Not a single chip or tear out. This is a beautiful cut. It's no wonder the larger professional panel saws all have this feature. Now next, I want to take this feature to another level. I want to show you something that even the larger professional panel saws don't have. There, now I've installed the Dado Blade, and this is what I really wanted to show you. Double scoring for Dado. Now, the best way for me to explain this is to go ahead and make a few cuts so you can see what it does. Now this is white melamine. This is a very commonly used material for cabinet making. If you've ever tried to make a dado in this before, you know that it's very difficult to cut chip-free and cleanly. What I've done is I've turned on the Dado Blade, but I have not turned on the double scoring. I want to make a first cut that is just the way you would do on a regular table saw. Now I've turned on the double scoring, and I'll make another cut right next to it so you can see how nice this machine will make a dado in melamine. Now, as you can see, the cut that we made without double scoring, just the way you would on a regular table saw, is completely chipped out on both sides. But the cut I made with the double scoring turned on is completely clean and chip-free on both sides of the cut. This is a really nice dado. And now I want to show you the inside of the machine. As you can see, I've removed the rip fence, rail, the extension table, and I've also removed some nuts and bolts so I can open this up and show you the inside. Now first let's look here. As you can see, there's a nice large access panel to get inside. You don't have to turn this machine upside down to get inside. And now you can see the powerful 3.5 horsepower main motor, also a 1 horse scoring motor. Now I want to remove the left-hand cast iron top. Now, when I do this, I want you to take note of where the table separates. You'll see why this is important in a moment. Now notice how beefy everything is. All cast iron trunnion, very thick everywhere, extremely nice. You can also see that the main blade and the scoring blade, if you opt for it, are totally enclosed, which means that dust collection is extremely efficient. The dust isn't just flying around the cabinet and hitting the floor. It's all contained and goes right out this hose. And to get inside, there's a nice access door right here, so you have beautiful access to everything. There's a worm gear mechanism to tilt the blades, also a worm gear to raise and lower. Now I want to go ahead and put this machine back together, but rather than put the cast iron top back here, I'm going to put an aluminum sliding table. That will make this machine a TSS sliding table saw. And since we put the joint of the table in the correct position, the slider will be right where it should be, right next to the blade. Great. Thanks, Larry. Now I've installed a nice aluminum sliding table for extra cross-cut capacity. And since we've put the joint in the table in the correct place, this sliding table is right where it should be, right next to the blade. Now this machine is well on its way to becoming a TSS sliding panel saw. I won't bore you with putting all the nuts and bolts back together. We have a machine right next to me that we've already done this. This is the Laguna TSS sliding table saw. Now, if you showed a European woodworker the old American design, he would probably say that, now this is a really nice machine, but it seems like there's something missing. It really seems like half a machine. A table saw really should have both a nice rip fence for large ripping capacity and a nice sliding table for large cross-cut capacity as well. This is a really nice sliding table. Now, I want to show you how this slider is put together. Now, you may be familiar with sliding tables like this, but what you may not know is that there are many different ways to build a sliding table and make it travel. What I want to do is take off a couple of pieces so that I can show you what we've done. The Laguna TSS sliding table travels on round steel ball bearings that ride on round hardened steel rods. There are 8 rods that capture the ball bearings on both sides. There are 2 benefits to this system. One is that since you have a round ball bearing on another round surface, there's a very sharp contact point. What this means is that no matter how much sawdust develops on the system, the bearings cut right through and you will never feel them. Another is that all sliding tables eventually wear out. This system, rather than sending it back to the factory, you can simply loosen this screw yourself, rotate the rod to a new surface, and you're good for many more years. And generations from now, when you run out of fresh surfaces, you can simply replace the rods. On the Laguna TSS, what comes standard is the 50-inch American-style rip fence. There's a very nice 48-inch capacity cross-cut fence, flip stop with a nice spring-loaded action in front. There's a very heavy-duty cam lock. This can be roughed into position in this way. You can also make fine tuning adjustments right here. Now I'll go ahead and have Larry install some additional accessories that you can purchase with this machine. While he's doing that, let's talk about the TS, what comes standard, and I'll also show you the optional mobility kit. First, let's start with the optional mobility kit. Now, I've never really liked a mobility kit on a table saw very much because I don't like the idea of having a machine that should be based firmly on the ground. I don't like it sitting on wheels, even if they're locked. So we've come up with a great way to have a mobility kit, but let this sit right on the floor. If you notice, the machine right now has a set of wheels, but the leveling feet are sitting right on the concrete, and so are the 4 leveling screws that come with the machine. If this machine had a brain, it wouldn't know that it's on a mobility kit right now. So now if I want to move the machine with our mobility kit, you can just lift this level right here, kick this pin in. Now you can see that that raised this part of the machine and the leveling feet is off the ground. I've got one more on this side. Same pin. Now both leveling feet are completely off the ground. And I can use my Johnson bar to simply move the machine. It's just that simple. Now, before we show you the accessories that you can add to the machine, I thought it would be important to take you back to the base machine. This is the basic TS table saw. Comes standard with the 50-inch T-square American style rip fence, steel extension table. Now, this is a great starting point. I've showed you how you can add the scoring, the sliding table to make this machine a TSS. Now, I can see that Larry is about finished installing the accessories on the TSS, and let's show you those. Thanks, Larry. Now, if your shop space is small, you can add the 24-inch long cross-cut fence. And if you would still like additional capacity, you can also add this telescopic feature that includes another spring-loaded stop. Now, let me get this out of the way so you can see. Oh, and I should also add that there's a nice positive stop for 90 degrees, and this flips away very easily. This is the clip-on support table that clips on to the slider. There are two release levers underneath so that you can slide this into any position and lock it in place for extra support. You can also add an extremely heavy-duty miter gauge to either the TS or the TSS. Now, I hope you can see that we included all the best features of the good old American design, all the best features of the European table saws, and plenty of our own inventions and ideas. But the proof is in the performance. So let's go have some fun. Whoa, whoa, hold everything here. What am I doing? Look at this cut that I'm trying to make here. I must be doing this purely from the force of habit. I've used a regular table saw for so many years that I automatically walked up to this machine for this cut. This is a piece of plywood that is very long and narrow, and I wanted to cut it in half. So I walked up to this machine, and I was going to use the short end of the material against this rip fence that's 4 feet away from me. This is crazy. If I bobble this just a little bit, this whole thing is coming right back at me. And if the danger factor isn't enough, I also have an accuracy problem. That factory edge down there, I don't know exactly how square that is. So will this end be square? I'm not sure. Probably not. Now, I do have a way around this that I have used before, but I really don't want to make another homemade wooden sled. This is a great job for the Laguna TSS, and it's really nice sliding table. Now there, that's the way to do it. Now we made that cut totally safe, and the other nice thing is that I now know that this cut was made perfectly square. Now I know the bookshelves that I'm making aren't going to be rocking on the floor. Now the next operation that I want to do is I want to make a rabbet on each end of this bookcase side and a couple of dados right down the middle. Now this is another great job for the sliding table because I also want those cuts to be perfectly safe, and I also want them to be perfectly square. Now before I do that, I want you to also take note that I made this cut with the cross-cut fence in the rearward or operator side of the machine. You also may have noticed that I made some previous cuts with the cross-cut fence on the other side of the machine. It's important to know that on the TSS, you can set up the sliding table with the fence in either position, and it can also be set up so that you have the capacity to cross-cut a full sheet of plywood and completely clear the blade in either position. So let's go ahead and put a Dado blade on this machine and make those other cuts. Oh, hi, Torben. The shelves are coming out real nice. We're almost finished. This is perfect timing that you show up. I'd like to introduce to you Torben Helshoy, the president of Laguna Tools.
Wow, you're right. This looks really good. And that's quite important because not only am I a perfectionist, but my wife is too. I want to say thank you to Brad for making this video. I want to say thank you to you for looking at this video. I hope it has answered your questions that you have, and I hope that you can see that we have made a special saw. And I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about how these machines come about, because it's rooted in the truth that Brad is an American woodworker. I am a European woodworker. I have gone through the traditional European apprenticeship and worked over in Denmark, and then I came here and also did woodworking here. So Brad knows what the traditional American cabinet saw has done for American woodworking, and he's made his living on it. And I have the European background. So when we develop these machines, first of all, we wouldn't do it if we didn't think we could come up with some really great solutions that are going to help you make woodworking both easier and more fun. But when we do that, we have some real fun battles. We don't draw blood, but it almost is there. He's smiling. It's okay, but it's fun. This is what both Brad and I really like. And I hope it comes through to you. Again, I want to thank Brad. I want to thank you. And I know that you're going to have questions. And please contact us. You can send us an email. You can send us a pigeon mail. You can use the postal system, or you can call us. Again, thank you very much. Okay. This is really good. This is good. I'm going to hide that knot there.